First of all, for those who notice, I have a Hebrew computer. That's because guess what? I'm from Israel. I speak Hebrew. Go figure. So, in the meantime, I'll show weird pictures of myself that I uploaded to Tumblr a long time ago, like this one. Yeah, it's beautiful, right? Anyway, so welcome to my panel. Go yay! Yay! Perfect. Okay, awesome. So, oh my god. So this is a panel where I explain for an hour like how to make music and everything. So before we start, and just to make sure what kind of if you're like acquainted with making music or not, just raise your hand first of all if you never made music before and you're here to learn how to start making music. Everyone. Okay, that's good. And how many of you actually had experience with making music and know some lingo about music? Alright, so it's like a 50-50 thing. So it's like I'm gonna try to cover as much stuff as possible. Anyway, so it's because I'm technically running a bit late, and because it's like 5 minutes into it, and I have like until oh wait, no, it's wrong. Let me make sure. Okay, right now it's 12:35, so I have until like 1:35? No, 1:30, right? Or it's like half an hour. Yeah, it should be it. Just making sure, because I don't want to do overtime and just be annoying while doing that. So, I'm going to basically explain, as much as I can with this hour, how when you make music, how pre-production, production, and also mixing and mastering, what each process basically involves into doing that. And I'll try to basically do as much as I can for those who never made music before, to explain like in regards to what does it mean to be a musician, how does it mean to make music, and some people probably have the question, what do you do first? What's the process, and if there is a process or anything like that. So right off the bat, I want to say that when it comes to being a musician or just involved art in general, everyone knows that when you do something, even when it's like, let's say you just make a really stupid scribble on pen and paper, it is considered technically art, because you basically just do something, and when you do, like, and you learn from mistakes and everything, that's the way it works, basically. And same thing goes with music. You just make, like, a very stupid pattern. Let's say I just, take a kick and a snare. I mean, you're not going to hear anything, because we still haven't connected to the monitors, to the speakers yet, but as an example, so just kick, snare, and just like kick, snare, kick, snare. So like, and then you just play that. And that's already music. That's already something that you can consider something that you made your own. And the more you add more layers to it, the more complex it is, and that's the way it is. And I'm just saying that out of explaining that you shouldn't be afraid of trying first to do something simple, because you're not supposed to be the greatest musician of all just by doing something simple. So just don't be afraid, tackle on, and do whatever you can. So I'm just going to start with pre-production and explain first of all about these audio workstation that I work with, which is, digital audio workstation is what it's called, what I'm using, and it's called a DAW for short. And DAW is basically a software or anything that you can use to make music on. And there's FL Studio, as you can see here. That's FL Studio. Hi. Say hi, FL Studio.
Hi, FL Studio.
You're welcome.
We love you.
And FL Studio, and also many other programs like Ableton Live, like Logic, and Reason, and many other programs are for using to make music on a computer. And there's also Acid Pro, and there's also Audacity. Audacity. I said Odyssey. I try this. Anyway, so Audacity is also like a program that you can technically make music on. And I'm saying that because it doesn't really matter which software you use to actually make music, because with everything you can make the best of music, I think. There's nothing like, oh, there's limitations in this and that, because that's true to everything. Hey, what's up? There's no limit to what you can do, because in every one of them you can do basically the same type of music. It's all about it's all about having a different workflow to each one of them. From what I understand from a lot of people, FL Studio seems to be the most intimidating of the bunch. Like Ableton, I know Ableton Live is the easiest to understand. Sorry, I just burped a bit. Do you have this? Quick, it's like a headphone jack from the. Yeah, the dual headphone. That's all. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're gonna get this up so you hear some music. Yeah. And where was I? Sorry, where was I again? He's just gonna like plug.
About how Ableton Live was easier.
Oh yeah, Ableton Live. That's it. I'm just saying, out of comparison, that Ableton Live, people say it's easier to understand first of all and get into making music quickly. And definitely, I know that some even I forgot. Like for example, Cubase is also kind of easy to understand the process, and many others. And the more everyone has like different ideas to get behind and stuff. But FL Studio definitely seems like the most intimidating because the first thing you see is this thing, and you have no idea what it means, and you have no idea what this means, and you have no idea why it has patterns and stuff, and just confusing as hell. FL Studio works like this. It's like every pattern that you make basically is basically each section or each just a small fraction of a song, which means that you can let's say I make drums on the first pattern, and then the second pattern I can make let's say I make a guitar, and I decide that it would it's gonna take forever to load this sample now.
Just use this one.
What is just but I don't have anything to record with. That would be cool if I could actually line in and just.
Oh, actually, I have like an adapter.
Oh no, but now it's because the problem is right now staying it up, and I just don't want to get too much messy with stuff. It's like that's one of the reasons that sometimes producing music is a hassle sometimes because sometimes you need to go through the long process in order to make something simple, and that's annoying. But let's say I make like and just copy that. Oh. So hard to do both things at once, right? I know, right? Joke. Anyway, so for example, I have my guitar in this one. So sorry, I need to go slower. So for example, I have in this pattern I have just drums, and in this one I have the let's say guitar. So I just and each pattern basically consists of like a different instrument altogether, and that's like one way to work on music in FL Studio. And sometimes you can just decide I want both the drums and both the guitar to play in the same pattern. And why is it even useful is because, for example, you want to. It kind of like helps some people to when it comes to working on a huge complex song, you don't want each one to be in a different pattern and then just hassle yourself through with working on big sections and stuff, and it just makes stuff easier sometimes. It's kind of hard to explain. I'm not the best when it comes to being a teacher, but hopefully once I get some audio input going, I'll show you like actually, and you'll also be able to visually and listen to what I make and everything. Because me explaining things is boring, right? No, I just talk a lot, and because especially if I explain something completely new, then explaining it right off the bat is really hard. More stuff to explain about how FL Studio works is that, as you can see, this is the playlist. Playlist means that all the patterns that you make go on the playlist, and you can choose to play them in order. So, for example, I choose the drums to play like that, just like 1, 2, 3, 4. For some reason, I moved the drum pattern. Oh yeah. Awesome. So where does it connect to? Sorry? Where does it connect to? So it's okay. Alright, so while we set it up, so it's like, for example, I have the drum pattern going like 4 times in a row. And then I have the guitar playing 4 times in a row with it. So it's like we got the drum pattern and also the guitar playing together. And I can just variation like, okay, sometimes the guitar playing, sometimes the drums playing. I can do whatever I want with it. I can even do it like half. So it only plays in the middle of it or something and just go crazy. Right now it's playing music. Oh, and then you try to do the music like the lowest I can. Just like, no. So, okay, I'm gonna just repeat it the first pattern. Just tell me if it's playing anything because you should play it.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, you're in this one.
Turn on the ring lights.
Oh wow, it's like. There you go. Now I can hear music. That's perfect. Now I can definitely like show better like what I make. Yeah, it's good. Thank you. Thanks nowadays, everyone. Just. He's the reason why this whole thing just works. Everything just works. He's a great helper, and thank him. He's one of the best people I worked on in any convention whatsoever. It's great. More pause. Look. Anyway, so for example, this is what I typically made from just not listening. So if you hear the guitar part, don't blame me. I just didn't know what I was making. Here's the guitar part. It sounds okay. Yeah, it's just blind making that. Okay, so as you can see, just making stuff like that, it's really like easy just to set it up, and you can do lots of crazy stuff with just deciding that I want both the drums and the guitar to play in the same pattern. So that way I can easily prepare like a huge section of the song and making more complex rhythms to it. And the more you try, the more you do with that idea in mind, you can definitely make like bigger things. So I'm gonna jump right into like a complex, like let's say a setup project file that I already started making, and it's also kind of an exclusive thing because this is a remix of a Michelle Creeper cover that she did of the song "Beat It" by Michael Jackson. Yeah, with Black Griffin. Yeah, that's so I'm making a remix of that. So I'm gonna show you, and it's still a work in progress, but it's also a cool thing to show you like how I work on like let's say a full set song, and what was the process behind making that initially. So, and it's also you're also guys gonna see like how do I look into mistakes I made in this song, for example, and improve that, and all the process that goes behind it. Another thing is that complex project files take a long time to load because they got all this crazy stuff going on all at the same time, and you need to wait for everything to just compute. So let's play the waiting game, shall we? There we go. It's done, guys. It's unloading. Okay, so let me make sure that this is up. Okay, so I'm gonna play what I made so far, and then I'm gonna explain all the process behind it. This is like how, like for me, complex like project file looks like. So as you can see, I got all these samples going on, and this is where the vocals files are, and I'm just gonna play that. So far, do you guys like it? Thank you so much. It's like I've been working on this for what?
Good enough as it is. I'll buy it right now.
No, wait, no, but it's not done, dude. It's like there's still all this section. I'll take 20. I'll just go to the website YouTube to MP3 and just download it like that. Because that's the way it is. So let me just explain a bit about the process, how I made this. So initially, when I got the song, when I asked like Michelle Creeper to kind of like send me the stamps, because she was like really excited about me making a remix about this thing. So initially, when it just started, it just looked like this. It just looked very, very simple with just nothing in it, and all I got were just the vocals, and I just started off from that. Because what I do when it comes to making remixes, I'll always look at the vocals first. And then in my mind, I picture what would be behind it, like picturing like an entire painting and kind of like figuring how do I make what I want to make in the end. And as time goes on, you just develop more and more and more, and you slowly like figure out what you want to do in the end. That's basically my process when it comes to remixing. Some people prefer to work the other way around, just make the instrumental first, and then kind of like figure out how the vocals enter. And that really depends on the process that you want to go on. And that's why I always say that whatever you do is completely fine, because when it comes to music, every process is different and unique. And you should be unique, because otherwise you'd sound the same, and everyone's going to complain that you sound exactly like Skrillex. And that's not a good thing, right?
Right.
Don't be Skrillex. No. It's a... But my point being is that Skrillex is an amazing producer. Sounding like him is not being a producer. It's just being someone who's just being a copycat because you want to get millions of views on YouTube, right? So don't do that. Yeah, so with that in mind, I'm going to show you like some of the process behind how I made this thing. So when I made this remix, and that's one of the things when I work in music, I start to be more, to just thinking ahead when it comes to working in music in general. Like now, because I know that is not necessarily complex, but it helps a lot to just not go through the process of linking everything and doing everything initially, because you just want to make music, right? You just want to start working on this. So what I do on FL Studio, you're allowed to, so to speak, layer instruments together. So whenever I play a note, it just plays all of them at the same time. So it's like, so as you can see, it plays harmonic, 3x oscillator, and also the sub bass together, all at the same time, because I know that I want all of them to play the same thing anyway. So what's the point of just copying the same notes again and again and again? So that's basically behind the thought process of like why I layer everything and make sure that everything plays the same thing. Same thing goes with the drums. With the drums, there's one technique that I do in order to make my drums punchier. And that's because, let's say I just, Addictive Drums is the go-to drums when I want to have realistic drums, and it's a great plugin. Actually, the composer Daniel Ingram uses it for My Little Pony's drum. If you notice the intro for My Little Pony, it uses Addictive Drums. So there's a drum that he uses for making the intro, for example. That's the drums without like anything on it, basically, except for like limiters, but basically those are just the drums. And while they sound good and everything, the problem is that when you want them to stand out, especially in electronic music, you want everything to be much more stronger, much more punchier. So what I do is that I have like a kick, like let's say play with it in the same time, so it sounds, that's just a kick. And that's like a kick, like a sample kick that I have from like a library that has like dubstep kicks and stuff like that. So I just play that with the Addictive Drums, and it has like a bit of a punch to it. So I'm gonna play with and without, so you'll hear the difference. And the same thing goes with the snare. That I also have like a sample snare that I just play with it, and just it all works together. It sets a punch to it, and it still leaves these dynamics and all the nice, realistic addictive drums from the Addictive Drums one, and just adds all layers together. And also do the same with having more hi-hats and simple hi-hats and also rides and stuff, and plays it all together. And also add like a layer of a punchy drum, which is like the stock drum that comes with Fruity Kick. And Fruity Kick basically just emulates a very rough emulated drum that sounds like a very electronic drum. And if you layer with it, it just sounds better. And the idea is that the more you layer stuff, the more you add complexity to your song, and that's why I'm kind of like showing it, because it's about having more and more to the thing. The more you add to it, the better it sounds. But sometimes having more sometimes less is more, because it really depends. That if you have the idea going, you don't need to have so many instruments playing at the same time, because the idea behind making music is that it's like telling a story. If people don't understand your story, they don't know what's happening, and it's always about having an understandable thing going on, because otherwise people would be like, what did you just make me? I don't get it. Why do you play me Big Room House? I don't get it. So anyway. So beyond the process of this thing, as you can see, because as I mentioned, this thing is called unison. Unison is just basically a big layer of instruments playing together, and as I said, it kind of like helps me to keep a lot of things playing at the same time. So, for example, just this thing, I think it's this, and this. So it's like. So as you can see, it's like just a bunch of those harmonies. Two harmonies are basically guitar samples playing left and right, like left channel, right channel, basically playing together, and also the bass and sub bass and everything. And as I explained before, the more instruments you have to play together, the more it sounds technically better. And I'm sorry that I'm very vague about those things, but just as a start, just to show you guys how most complex stuff look like, and then right after that, I'll start to make a new song from start to finish and kind of like explain as it goes throughout. And yeah, so. Now the drums. So, yeah, you can read it all and on and on. And yeah, I don't know. So basically, just like as I said, it's like how a complex project looks like, and that's kind of like how things like that look like when it comes to the very end. But I'm gonna open a new one and be like, hey, I'm gonna show you how to make music for real this time and stop talking about nonsensical stuff that nobody cares about. So I'm gonna invite Travis. Can you come on stage? I want to welcome Yuri Brownie, also, his real name is Travis, and Travis Odyssey. He makes amazing music. Oh, this one works too. So he's gonna while I make music, because the problem is that I cannot hold the microphone, and also probably if I could have just, work in music and explain everything when I do this, and I also kind of have 30 minutes left, so I'm gonna just start working on something. And he'll do his best to explain some of the process. And you guys have questions, feel free to raise your hand, and he'll do his best to answer his questions. If he has something direct to me, I'll take the microphone and answer whenever there's something that I could add upon. But mostly I'll just focus on and show you how I make music from start to finish and do my best doing that. So let's start.
Right. One thing I will say is I'm not familiar with FL Studio, but if it has to do with music making in general, I can definitely take that question. Yeah, let me see what you're doing. We can go over your shoulder. Alright, so you're just opening like a plugin, right?
Yeah.
How many of y'all are familiar with plugins? Okay, so I don't need to explain much. For those who aren't, it's basically just your instruments or your effects. Right now he's opening up a drummer. He's probably going to lay down just a basic drum pattern. That's a good spine to start with. It's a way to organize track. Is that a question in the back? Yes. What's up?
How often do you have to worry about having actual different audio channels, like on the left and right, if you're doing the same instrument, or if you're using a different instrument on one side of the speaker and another on the other side? How do you determine what to put it on?
A lot of that is sort of how do you decide which one is centered, which one is left and right?
Yeah.
It's, in my experience, it's usually a matter of taste and how wide you want your song to be. It also depends on if you're gunning for mono compatibility, but long story short, it's usually a matter of taste. If you want something all the way to the left or all the way to the right, you're kind of free to it. In the old days, in the old studio days, you would have certain drums on one side of the mix and say guitars on the other and vocals centered. But nowadays, with a lot of dance music, you want you want your bass frequencies centered, and then from there, you have sort of a cornucopia shape, sort of a triangle or a cone, where the higher frequencies are, the more wide you're free to be with them. One thing that I actually like to do is if I have a guitar sound or two guitar sounds, I'll take one and pan it to the left, and then another one and pan it all the way to the right. That way you have kind of a wide guitar sound that kind of is a little more pleasing to the ears. You can also have stuff that kind of pans across sort of actively. It's really up to you. For dance, as long as you keep the bass frequency centered, your kick, it should be able to play in most clubs simply because a lot of them run mono audio. But yeah, it's ultimately a matter of taste. Any further questions? What's up?
Well, I have one for like Living Tombstone. If you had a toaster, you would call it the Living Toast, right? If you had like a
Why? I just don't know. We don't honestly feel like, calling it. Actually, funny enough, one time we actually wanted to make a duo thing with Windows in the Living Tombstone. It didn't work out because, again, coordinating something like that, especially since we don't see each other like in real life, and seeing how process works in real life, it's really hard to do that. And that's why collabs are so limited towards, oh, he's making the vocals and I'm making this, or something that would be meaning that one has to do the 80% of the work. That's why collabs don't often work that way.
Yeah.
That is, if you have great dynamics with someone, and that might work out. But as I said, it has to do with knowing who you're working with. Because otherwise, you just don't want to screw up something, and he would say no. What I would do, and it really depends on who you're working.
No, I'm like asking like, what would you call your living room? You call add the living room.
Why does it still
Any
matter?
questions that aren't puns? Alright, is everyone here familiar with the piano roll view? There's a few different ways to. Oh, there's actually a question right there, yes.
Question for the Living Tombstone again. Why Living Tombstone?
The Living Tombstone is because a long time ago, before the Brony thing, is that I used to watch like a lot of animes, and one of them was Black Lagoon, and I'm a big fan of that show. And after I finished watching that, I thought, hey, I could make like a fictional rock band called The Living Tombstone based on that anime. And back in the day, I didn't know how to make rock music or anything of that sort. I wasn't that talented to make something like that. So I just rolled with that name. And whenever I just uploaded the first thing, which was the remix of Alex S's, I think, Ghosts, Melting Pot of Alcohol. And that was the first remix that I published as a Living Tombstone. And ever since, it's just stuck. I just said, okay, whatever. I don't think too much about what the name means. I just say, I make music, this is my name, go figure.
Is this your name? Yes.
What kind of drug did you put in your song Batty to make it so addicting?
That one was just inspired by SCP Music. Their year label. I was inspired by their act, Scream Team, which does a lot of sort of Halloween flavored tunes. Actually, they have a lot of their songs released in the United States. If you look up Scream Teams, Boom Boom Scream, or just a few other ones. Really fantastic stuff. Very silly Halloween flavored. But yeah, it was modeled after
skeletons.
Kind of. Yeah. A lot of their songs are very much like that actually. No, but they were self-aware. It's all good fun. Stellar stuff. By the way, there's something. All I'll say is there's something between me and SCP Music in the works. So look forward to that pretty soon. Yes.
What plugins do you prefer? What's your favorite?
What kind of plugins do you like?
I usually like compressors the most because it brings out a lot of the sound that you want to make sure that they sound not necessarily fatter, so to speak. It's more like facts. Yeah, but it's more like when it comes to producing something, having a sound that sounds better. That's what makes people just immediately notice it right off the bat. And that sometimes helps it. Sometimes it ruins the, so to speak, transients. And for those who don't know what transients means, it basically means the audio levels coming from the plugin, and the more transients it has, the more louder it is. Basically, it's more like audio signals or electric signals coming from something. And that's sometimes a rule that it really depends on the taste. And sometimes people prefer something to sound really, really fat by just having a lot of compression over everything. Some people don't. It's a give or take thing, really.
Yeah. One minor thing, like an actual transient, is when you have a waveform, like when you see like a sample of a snare.
Like
the
look at this,
transient's
for
loud.
example. Like you see this thing. This is transient. This is how much audio levels are coming through. Those are transient.
I thought that was just like volume level. I thought transient was like with an actual waveform, it's the highest. It's the part where it's the
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I'm just kind of confused between waveforms.
Quit trying to multitask.
So yeah, sorry. When I say here, for example, the bass here is the strongest. like in the 50 part, you see there's a lot of bass. That's like the loudest transient. So the louder it is, in this part, is a transient basically. It's kind of hard to explain if you don't know, like open basic, basic example. Oh yeah.
So, what Tombstone is saying is that he likes plugins that make the hi-hat sound fat right off the bat.
Yeah, like compression and other dynamics. Basically, you can have a sound form that works well enough on its own. The volume is kind of start to finish. But what dynamic plugins help you do is they'll help you, make it sound. It'll make it sound louder even when it's not. It sounds like really aggressive up close. Yes. The very first part, the very first thing that you're seeing, that is a transient. Like the very first part where it's loudest, that's a transient. Like transient is kind of hearing this and not a flash. The rest are usually just yeah.
Yeah, so like this part is like the loudest you hear. It's just right in the beginning.
That's an actual transient.
Yeah.
What's the rest?
It's just carryover. It's just the rest of the sound. The transient.
Yeah. No, it's just a very weird to explain transients, and I remember for the longest time I didn't understand what transients are. But basically, it's just when in audio form basically you reach the highest one, that's like the transients and everything. Oh, sorry. Did you guys hear me? I was like talking without a microphone. I'm so not prepared for this. No, it's fine. So as I said, for the longest time I don't know what transients are technically, and even now I technically understand what they are. But basically, basically the loudest point in a certain waveform. So it's like if you see the part at the beginning in the hi-hat, I'll just show it again. The part in the beginning are just the transients, like the very, very loudest point. And the more you increase it, the more you make it louder, the louder the transients are, basically.
Think of it as the part that starts the sound itself.
Yeah. And you can either, there's a way to improve on that, let's say they say the transients, the very part in the beginning should be louder. That's why sometimes things sound punchier, because the transient in the beginning sounds a bit louder than the rest of it. And sometimes you can even do the opposite and do really crazy stuff with it when it's not that loud. And yeah, so.
Does that kind of make sense?
It's confusing, I'm so sorry. It's such a weird thing.
The science of music is a beautiful and sometimes confusing thing, but once you take some time and sit with it, it starts to really click. We're also a little early, and we woke up only a couple hours ago, so. Yeah. Another thing, even though it's kind of funny that I mentioned that music is it looks easy to make and it's so easy, and I show all this crazy stuff that I'm doing right in seconds. Again, I'm not trying to overwhelm, and I'm trying my best not to be overwhelming when I show stuff, because again, as I said, music is a thing that you make and experience for yourself. And even though there's people who have all these layers of knowledge, not creativity, just knowing what to do, that's like a thing that you only get from experience. But making music is always a thing that you get as a talent, so to speak. So, and I just say, for example, the way I used to make music as a Living Tombstone when I just started in the band, the only thing I did was, let's say, just put sound synthesizer. Oh God! No! Hold up! And I'm serious. What I did is because now I just played sound synthesizer. I'm just gonna play the same thing with sound synthesizer on full volume. Look at this. Oh, whoops! It plays nothing. Oh yeah, sorry, because I'm not in pattern mode. Sorry. And you see, it's the bass is fatter. Everything sounds technically quote unquote better. Sound gooded.
And that's all I knew, because I thought, hey, it sounds good. I don't care what it does and what it really means. And even though that I later discovered that, while it is a good plugin, it doesn't allow you to do much stuff with it. And the more you get better, the more you understand that having freedom to do what you want with it is better. Because as you can see, sound synthesizer is just a knob, off, on, off, on. That's it.
Letters.
Yeah, and just some letters with some presets. And that's it. And I thought that was sounding good. And that's what you guys need to understand. When you make music, don't be afraid to see me doing stuff and, oh my God, it's so complex, I didn't think about this before and I might be sucking. No, you just, that's some of the process. And at that level, I just didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what sidechaining is. I didn't know what transients mean. I didn't know what ever means. I just made music because, for example, all this melody is not because I learned how to make that melody. It's because I just thought, yeah, it just sounds good. Until now, it's based on how it sounds good. I don't know music theory. I honestly don't. I just make stuff because it sounds good.
Yeah. Actually, on the subject of music theory, it never hurts to know your craft, but on the same token, don't let it cramp what you would want to create. Let creativity come before formality. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
How long do you take to make a song?
It's a good question. question. I personally released songs within a day of producing them. On the same token, the original Discord took me about 3 or 4 months to finally settle on a version and produce and release. Meanwhile, 3 hours for the Tombstone remix.
Yeah. 3 hours. Yeah, it was 3 hours.
But it was 3 hours because he already had this the entire song laid out to me. So it's like I just took the vocal samples and just, you know, half of the work is done already, so I just need to make something else with it. That's it.
And there's not a bad, you know, if you spent an hour and it sounds good, then don't feel guilty about that. Like, on the same token, you could spend a year on a song, and if it sounds bad to you, then it sounds bad. It just doesn't work. I've been in a bit of a writer's block lately, so it's a little hard. It's a little hard for me to conjure new stuff up. But it could take, I don't know, maybe. I know some people that can do a track a week. It really depends on on your own, you know, how creative you're feeling at the moment, how well things are clicking in together. So it really varies. Any other questions? Yes.
I know that Living Tombstone did a collaboration with microphones for a sound recall. How long did that take to make?
Beyond Entomb, it's a weird process because the remix for the Beyond Garden by Winchester itself took like 2 days to make. But that's also, as I said, when I made music back then, I didn't necessarily care too much about everything else when it comes to music. I just said, it sounded good, I know exactly what I want to make, 2 days it took me to finish, and I bet if I made the same remix now, it would take me 2 weeks to make it. Just because of how much I would care about every little bit that no one of you guys really care about. You guys don't care about how loud the bass is and how things like that. Not because you guys don't want to, but it's because that in the future the more you get into it, the more you start to care about those details. It's like painting now and just drawing a few scribbles that looks good. And like after 2 years, you see how important it is to draw that specifically or like that, because sometimes the more complex it is, the more you understand how you do it. Sometimes you get better with it. That's the whole point.
And it would still only take you 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You lucky bastard.
No!
Pardon my French. Family. All right. Any further? My apologies. Yes.
Living Tombstone. So you said that you record the audio for that. I'm sorry, beat it. You recorded the audio with Michelle Cover?
It wasn't recorded. It was kind of like she already gave it, like because she already recorded it, and she just sent me the vocals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So with the Let It Go, you just like clip the audio. How did you do that?
Oh, I like just the vocals basically. I found it online. It's just on Tumblr. Somebody posted the acapella.
Oh, okay.
Of course, Tumblr.
Yeah. No, because something you find really cool stuff on Tumblr, and I just found somebody reblogged the acapella and just downloaded it, snagged it, and started working with it right away. Actually, yeah.
A note about acapellas: if they don't exist, but there is an instrumental, there's a means by which you can sort of subtract out the instrumental from the version with the vocals. All I'll say after that is be sure to buy all your tracks. All right. Any further questions? Yes.
When each of you started out making music and you had no idea how to work any of the software, what kept you from stopping?
I just liked getting lost in the menus. Honestly, like the first thing I started with was like an abandonware MIDI sequencer, and like it just had snap. You clicked in the notes. Literally, that was it. And you know, I just kind of figured out, oh, okay, so this button does this button does this button. Okay, don't hit that one. That closes it. And there's a certain amount of getting lost in it that I appreciate. I mean, there's also always the help pages. Those are, as they say, very helpful. I'd say the first thing to learn in any major DAW is how to get a note to play. At least one. And then get 2 notes. And then get a clip. Or maybe 2 clips. Learn how to, you know, find notes. Then find clips. Then find multiple instruments. And then just kind of build your understanding from there. There's stuff in Logic 9 that I'm still finding. There's stuff in Logic 10, I don't like 10. There's stuff in Logic 9 that, you know, still perplexes me. And then there's stuff in Logic 9 that I've known about for years that have built-in functions that I just never use. Yeah, take a day to get lost in your DAW, in your program, whatever you're going to use. It could be Audacity, it could be just recording instruments over and over, but get lost in the menus and the options that you have. Even if you never go to that function again, you know what's there. And did you have a different experience with that too, or is that about the same?
Also about the same experience, and sometimes I actually want to get some stuff explained to me in some way or another. That's why YouTube is your friend when it comes to tutorials. Tutorials on YouTube are plentiful. Sometimes there's always those guys that don't understand what they're doing, so they explain to you in on a tutorial. Don't do that. Go to hey guys. He's one of the best guys. Like what's his name? Yedugs. Best guys who make tutorials. No joke. No homo. Anyway.
What are you talking about?
Oh, shut up. I'm a tutorial guy. You're not Yedugs. I hope you're not. Are you really Yedugs in secret? Hey guys. No, it's a secret. He's like knowing who Superman is. It's that. Anyway, so Seamless, for example, is an amazing guy who does lots of really great tutorials on FL Studio, for example, and just watching people who understand what you're doing, and there's even people who just talk, just talk nonsense about how to make music for an hour. From a guy who understands how to produce music. For example, there was I think it was a seminar by Dr. Dre who explained how to make hip hop. Even though it's not a genre I'm into, the fact that he explained how it makes like a full track and just showing it is enough to kind of like get, to think the same mind process that he does, and just like, oh wow, so that's how he does this and that. That's interesting because I do it differently. And for the fact that I do it differently, it's not a bad thing. Just, getting all other perspectives is always a good thing, because sometimes you understand that what you did all this time is okay. Because some musicians are just as much as you are, even with 20 years of experience, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah.
So long story short, just learn your program the best way that you know how. If it's YouTube tutorials, if it's the help menus, if it's throwing yourself at it repeatedly and finding what sticks, go for it. All right, any further questions? Yes. All the frustration in the world will melt away with the reward of actually seeing a song finished through. That said, it can range from this is kind of frustrating to finish the dang song already. Is that all right?
Yeah, actually, for me, it's more like the frustration of not wanting to go through the like making music is easy. It's like to go to working is easy, but your mind always tells you, what if it doesn't work like the way you wanted it to be? And at that point, you always say to yourself, I don't want to work on this. I don't want to be in that position where it doesn't work for me because it means restarting everything. But you have to kind of play with your mind psychologically and say to yourself, you can do this. It's going to suck anyway at some point or another. The fact that you're still working on this is something. Like, for example, I released a remix of The Road to El Dorado. And there's things on this remix that I know I could have done better. Like, for example, the bass could have been stronger, and I didn't do that. The drums could have been louder, and I was playing too safe, basically, with this. I could have done better. But, and that's why I kind of stopped making music at some points, because I don't want to go and say, oh, I forgot something. Damn. So, that's my problem with making music. I just don't want to go through that process every time I do that. But I need to tell myself it's okay. It's part of being a musician. You just need to go through the process. You always learn baby steps, and you'll get there.
Never let the frustration of what could be or what you think "quote unquote" should be get in the way of what is and what will be.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, profound.
Yeah. What's up?
So, what I've gathered from what you guys have said, making music is kind of like drawing. You just
It's like any creative sort of content production role. Yes, I think so. What's up?
I just want to say, speaking as a musician, one of the things you have to learn when you're a musician is that it's going to take years and years to be able to create what you hear in your head, and you're probably never going to be able to create exactly what you hear. But part of being a musician is just learning to like what you can make.
That right there. That was. Can I call that?
All right. By the way, everyone, that's Mel IRL. Come on. You're a great person.
Mel
Does
IRL.
great music. Amazing person. And by the way, we're going to be collabing. We're going to be dual DJing on my set tonight. So you should have to check.
It's going to be awesome. I'm just saying. Exclusive music.
Yes.
Of all the ones that you created, what would you say was the piece that you made that made you just want to take your computer and throw it out the proverbial window?
There's a few of those. There was the actual just theme remix way back in the day. Let's see what else. Discord gave me some trouble. a Cutie Mark Crusaders remix also. Fly took a little bit longer than I'd have liked. That was originally supposed to be a collab, but it kind of fell through, and I got frustrated with it. I have that experience with a lot of my songs.
Discord gave you.
Not as much as other songs, but yeah, I did have some frustration with Discord. I'd say, which one really threw me? Well, it would take a while for me to remember the one that really was like, oh, screw it, I'll never do this one. Yeah, what's up?
I kind of have a question for both of you. I wanted to know what Tombstone was doing with the 7 dots.
Seven dots?
The fruity.
This one, thank you.
Yeah.
Whoops, I got into the manual. Whoops!
Right! Now let's read it.
No, it's gonna take forever. Trust me, you don't want to do that. You want to do that, but not now. Anyway, the 3 dots, what it does is basically, as we explained, transitive, right?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
So basically, I can control, like, because initially a sound can sound the way it is, but it depends on like what you're working on. You need to control the transients in certain portions of the song, because there's so much. Oh yeah, the frequencies, because there's so much you can do. I mean, you can play a lot of instruments together, but you can always make sure that that 2 instruments do not collide with each other, and you can also make sure that the instruments doesn't sound as crisp or as muddy or as clean as you wanted it to be. So there's many tricks to that, and this is a bit of a thing to. It's one of those things that you kind of like need to learn technically, because you need to kind of like remember some aspects of what how drums get this punchiness sound, is what makes what it is.
Yeah, and like there's a space in music, which that's why panning and EQing is really important, because if 2 sounds are inhabiting the same space, they're going to clash, and it's not going to sound good. And EQing like can free up space in your music, which is also why it's important to learn exactly how to use like compression, limiters, and everything. Because if you compress something too much, it's going to take up all the space in music. It's important to have space so things don't sound cluttered or messy or discordant. That was a little joke.
There's a shirt. Nah, you in the yellow shirt, you've been really patient.
Tombstone, do you have any songs you were working on like before you started this, and if so, can we see them? Or if
What's the question again?
Can you repeat that?
Sorry.
did you have any songs that you were working on before you came up here? And if so, can we see them?
Like just before I came up, like.
No, like that you've been working on at like home.
Like the remix I showed.
Do you want to play a little snippet of our collab, maybe?
Collab.
Yeah, we can. We totally started on the collab. We were supposed to.
Not because I'm such a lazy butt. That's why.
Oh my God.
No, here's the thing. Me and basically we're kind of like working on a collab together, where it's basically I got vocal samples and I just need to just make stuff out of it, like the Beat It remix. And it's a process that it's not like I'm struggling with it. It's just that. I guess I'm just taking too long to basically learn new stuff at the moment, so that's why I'm not really making anything from the collab. Oh, sorry, no.
It's okay. I've sort of been in the same situation too. The thing is, like, just being an artist in general, you run into a lot of blocks. And a friend told me some advice that was like really helpful to me. It was just, and it's why music theory and stuff is so important, because at some point you have to like be able to force yourself to make music, which is kind of sounds negative, but it's how you get out of blocks. You just have to make something, and then that will spur your imagination again. And that's why learning music theory and everything is important, because if you know music theory, you can just make a song. It doesn't have to be good. You just know like what sounds good, and you just make it. Like if you're in a block, and that's how you get out of it. Like I was in a rut for like a couple months earlier, and I got out of it by making a stupid Big Room House track. Like I just made it, and it got me out of my block. And just it's the same for like any kind of art. You like if you're an artist, like a visual artist, you just draw whatever, like you just go by what you know, like the rules and everything, and you just make something that's by the rules, and then that can help you get out of your block. So that's just a little bit of advice there. Just, you know.
We have a gentleman in red here who's been very patient.
Okay, two questions. First of all, I know it's not exactly your niche, so to speak, but have you ever thought about eventually branching out into other genres of music, such as classical, rock, or even metal, perhaps?
I've made all of those.
No. In that case, the other question would be, as a starting classical musician who's been testing this violin only just a week before, I'm pretty much not sure as how to approach music, how to compose. There's just so much to. It's just a very big world. Something that we're stuck. Got this guy saying one thing, got another guy saying another thing on YouTube, other websites, so on and so forth. With very classical musicians, but how do you go absorbing all that and go about practicing music?
That's a good question. I think the answer is whatever compels you, whatever moves you. Like, you can have two differing points of advice. The answer is whichever one resonates with you the most. You can have someone that says, "Oh, learn all the music theory and learn all the technique and learn all the production," and you can have another one that's like, "Just feel it, bro. Just feel it." Whichever one resonates with you. And frankly, you could learn everything in the world. It's a matter of you just have to try. If all you do is add 3 notes onto a piece of paper, you've started. In the case of, with differing opinions, I'd say just evaluate them and just see like, okay, this one makes some good points, this one also makes some good points here. When two conflict, you just gotta pick one. And in terms of composition, there's no wrong way to start. There just really isn't. If you took the notes of Mary Had a Little Lamb and randomized them, then that would still be completely valid audio expression.
Basically, the patterns apply to the last range, such as one line.
Right. The wonderful thing about music is that there's just as much subjectivity to it as there is objectivity. There's a structure, there's pattern, there's circle of fifths, and all sorts of wonderful things. But what the end result, the audio experience in the head and what happens in the soul is the end result. It won't matter what kind of numbers you throw in there, and that's up to you. If you want to create that, it is within your own control, not within the sound or the clay or whatever it is that you're using to get the job done. It's what you put in.
Yeah, really, you just gotta throw out any idea of objective, what is a good thing to do in music. Really, I mean, in the end, it's all about whether it's good to you, what you feel is right, and what works best for you. If something's easy to do and it sounds good, do it. Don't make things more difficult for yourself, because that's totally pointless when you're working in any art form. If something just feels too difficult and you're not feeling it, then don't do it.
And it sounds so fluffy. It sounds so, just everything is rainbows and butterflies and sprinkles.
Yeah. So basically, the key thing is just being passionate about it.
Yeah.
Being passionate about it and starting, trying, being ready to fail. Make stuff that sounds bad. Make stuff that sounds terrible.
On purpose?
If you feel so inclined, be prepared to create something that does not reflect what you wanted.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And personally for me, I'm part of a big SoundCloud community that's all based around just making jokes, and it's called SoundClown. A lot of basically a big point of it is just trying to make bad things, and I mean that's not if that's your goal. It can teach you a lot. I learned how to use Ableton just by making really bad mashups.
Just to add, when you make jokes and you're not taking music seriously, then it allows you to be much more creative about your work instead of just being too serious about exactly what you make. And so that's why I joined the SoundCloud community too. That's why I met her. So because we did crazy stuff together.
Yeah.
And that's part of the fun. I mean, being relaxed about something makes you much more open about ideas instead of just being too specific about it.
Does that generally answer the question?
For the most part, there may be other questions, but I'm sure everybody else has got questions.
All right.
Any other questions then? Yes.
All right, 2 questions. So, how are you guys enjoying Texas, Houston?
Well, I live here, so
well, I don't.
Yeah. It's hot, and I really enjoy staying inside and not going outside because it is really hot. It is very hot, and I don't enjoy the heat. Did I also mention that it's really hot in Texas, and the temperature is very high?
I was here last year. I enjoyed the weather relatively. It's nice to have a balance of freakishly hot outside and freakishly cold AC in the main room. I was shivering in the main room. I kid you not.
Also, because we technically don't have that much time, but I'll probably just go a bit after because I have some time afterwards to show you. The guy in the yellow shirt just asked like how something that I made before I came here. So this is one of them. So also I want to give a shout out. Basically yesterday there was this musicians meetup where people. This is like PFP, where like people who want to meet us and actually greet us and take photos and also take autographs want to come. And there was a big confusion about that because what happened is that we the musicians didn't necessarily know where it was and none of us really knew what it was, and it was a big confusion with the staff and us and just big confusion, and we were really, really sorry for those who went there and asked us where were we? What happened? Why are you guys not there? I'm waiting for you, and I'm really sorry. So for that reason we want to fix all that, and we want to say sorry for those VIP who came to the meetup and come today. Where is it again? It says we have basically all of us musicians have like a big sound check we have to go through, which is in the main event, right? So the main event, whoever is in the VIP, go to the main event on 5:30, I think it is. 5:30 because that's what I heard, and if not 5:30, you can always come a bit early. We'll be there anyway. Well, like 5. Don't mind like waiting. We'll be there definitely. And it's going to be a whole lot more people too because everyone arrived. Thank God.
If you bought a VIP pass to gain access to us yesterday, we apologize that not all of us were there, and that's what this is about. If you bought that VIP pass, and please go on by, we'd be happy to meet with you there. There's a question in the back.
All right. Yeah. Ask us away.
Do we take fan requests? What do you mean? If we take ideas, then they're your ideas, and that means that that's a form of plagiarism. If you're talking about like a collab or something like that, then that's a different matter. It's a bit of a tricky subject because we tend to have a lot of projects already on our plates. If you get to know us as people first, if we know the kind of music that you're doing, the kind of music that we're doing, and we know you on grounds as a person, as a musician, then we will consider it. But if we're talking about just taking fan ideas and working with that is kind of plagiarism on our part because we're working with an idea that's completely not ours, and it's just not valid. We would rather see what fans do when inspired by us than just take their idea and spin it and kind of publish that. Does that make sense?
Generally, like when you want if you want to collaborate with a musician or something, or like get them to do something like an idea, the best course of action is to treat them like an actual person, and don't become friends with them just to get music out of them, because that's not cool. It's just using people. But just if you want to be friends with a musician, just treat them like a person, because we're all people. I mean.
Like for example, me and Mel, we just discussed about, she asked me about, hey, did you make this remix of Light Me Up, my song? And I said, no, I didn't have time. It's like, what? Oh, whatever. And then also the collab we were supposed to do. And it's like, no, I didn't make that either. What? Oh, but it's just the idea is that you need to forgive, and because we're still human beings, even though we produce music like crazy, we're still, people, and you need to forgive people. Sometimes you need to say, okay, you need to be more flexible with people, otherwise nothing will happen. And more than not, you'll just say you don't want to work with that person anymore because he's a horrible person. Talent doesn't equal personality is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, we're just regular people. I've been rifling through cough drops to make sure that my throat doesn't die by the end of the night. Like, I've had too many of these. We have faults. These are not sugar-free, and I'm probably going to be all...
We're human! We're not ponies, we're human!
Do we not bleed?
This just in, Odyssey is now on dialysis for too many cough drops.
Oh, by the way, just to see how you guys are doing. How are you guys doing so far?
I'm doing awesome.
Because it's been like, we've been overtime, but just is anyone from the staff here? Anyone from the staff?
Any
people.
staff members, raise your hand.
Because I don't want to get too much overtime and collide with another panel. If that was the case.
Let's give a big round of applause to the staff for making this show happen.
So anyway, there's a guy Neil Shed in the back asked me about something that I made before I came here. So it's like I'm gonna show like this is a project file of if you've seen one of my recent uploads, I uploaded like a video of Galacon invitational thing, and I made like a short song that was playing on the radio with Vinyl Scratch and what's the name of the other pony? Sorry, so many people. Not Octavia. There was Vinyl Scratch and there was another one. Galacon. Not Candy, the other one. Who is the pony? It's Pikachu. Spider-Man. Well, yeah. Alimonti, whatever. Yeah. Noah King and Alimonti were in the car. They played in the radio, and I made that. Let me increase the volume. That thing. So hold on.
Drop it, dude.
So that's I was just soloing. Here we go. I'm gonna play the whole thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What I used to do is like, this is a SoundCloud joke. I wanted to play Linkin Park crawling in my skin at the same time. So let me see if I can do that. I think I did that, and I immediately regretted that decision. So I moved that. No, I can do it again. I have the sample somewhere. Okay, keep talking. I'll find it before we go overtime.
Alright, so judging by your reaction to the Texas weather, I can expect to see you here next year, correct?
It's a possibility. We'll see. What's up?
Whenever you're writing a song, they all can differ from 2 to 5 minutes. Well, how do you decide where to decide to stop? To make a stopping point, you can make it go for like hours and hours.
When I feel it's done.
Yeah, just whenever it feels right to end it.
It really depends on the situation, because some songs have to have a certain structure, so they go way over time. Like that's why DJ edits are over 10 minutes, because they have a big intro to fill in, so DJs can know exactly when to land their song when they start. The more time they have an intro, the better they have to kind of like collide with something, and that's why they also have a weird outro in the end, so they know exactly how to collide with another thing. That's one of the things. That depends on what it is, but most of the time you don't need to feel constricted to like, oh, it has to be long enough so people can enjoy it, so to speak. If it's long enough for people to enjoy the purpose of the song, that's fine. I mean, if people love it enough, and you can see it all the time, people take your song and copy paste the song over and over, so it'd be 10 hours. Just because, and that's completely fine. That means they love it and they want to hear it infinitely, because, hitting the replay button on YouTube is not that much of a thing to do anyway. So yeah, just don't feel, constricted. Oh, it has to be 3 minutes. Exactly.
Yeah.
There would be all in my talking.
Like,
Oh,
confusing I was about to say something, but I just lost my train of thought because like about the length of songs, really it just, if you feel like you've done enough, that's just where it ends. Like you can have songs that last for like a minute, but if they do what they intend to do and they do it well and they use that minute like properly, then who cares?
It's not the minute you put in, it's what you put in the minute.
Yeah, and like Hey son, where'd you find this? Certified Hood Classic. This is a certified Hood Classic. Yeah. Trapaholics mixtape. But like I've written songs that are like 10 minutes long, but they use the 10 minutes really interestingly, and they change up. Like if it's the same thing for 10 minutes, then no, it's understandable how people can be like, this is really boring, because it is. But like, if you can write, like classical composers write like 45-minute long symphonies that people sit and listen to because they're interesting. You know, like the idea that songs have to be under 5 minutes long is totally a modern invention. That's like pop music. Like just do whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Travis,
pop out.
get out.
All right.
Go
Love
on.
you guys.
Bye.
Enjoy the rest of the
I
panel.
love all of you.
Yeah.
You are all wonderful. Go. Follow me on SoundCloud.
Please like, comment, and subscribe.
All right.
Comment and subscribe. You want to see more?
Okay, let's just put.
It is right here in my heart.
All right, this is the final thing before we finish the panel. I'm gonna put the a cappella vocals of "Crawling in My Skin" by Linkin Park with this song and see what happens. It's all done.
For the record, I'm just gonna say I hate you.
There's something more.
Something inside me.
Whoa, PG-13, come on. Come on, Tombstone, I believe in you. You can make them funny. I am a certified funny, like, I have a PhD in making jokes. Funny. Hey, girl.
Hold on.
It sounds like it's in the right key. It's not like in time or anything.
Just let me make this thing right. That's one of the things with this is like, no, I don't care how much time I have. I don't care if I'm over deadline. I need to finish this.
You need to make the funny.
I need to make it funny.
I must make jokes funny. Jokes! Humor!
I can do this. Just what? Oh, there you go. Now it's done. Air horn everywhere.
Open up the air horn.
Now we're done. Okay.
Let's all give a hand to Tombstone. He has made it certified funny. This is a certified